hair is making choices today. That's for sure. We're just gonna roll with it because guess what day it is today? Actually, technically what day it was yesterday because the Goodreads Choice Awards were announced yesterday. But I don't know if I'm fighting something off. Now that I'm talking, maybe it's just because I haven't talked in 2 days. I sound a little bit weird. I think it's just because I have not spoken a single word in 2 days. I don't know if I'm fighting something off because everyone around me is sick or if seasonal depression has just like throat punched me. You know, could be a little bit of both. But I basically spent 2 days in bed and today is the first day I've gotten out of bed. So today on Wednesday, November 15th, we are going to look at the Goodreads Choice nominees together. I have not seen anything. The only thing I've seen is I believe that they like took out some categories from previous years and maybe added like a Romantasy category, but I don't know for sure. And I don't know for sure anything that's going to be in there except for obviously Fourth Wing because like, come on. I've never seen a book explode quite like that. But I haven't actually like seen any spoilers or anything. Thankfully, I have been staying away from Goodreads. And honestly, the reason that I wanted to, like my main motivation for getting out of bed, filming this video and actually doing my job is because I really want to watch Kayla's reactions to everything. So here's the thing though, is that I don't know what kind of video I want to make out of this. You will know because you're watching it, but current Lexa does not know because I don't know what's realistic. Last year I tried, I think just on my own, I didn't have a booktube channel, to read all of like the horror nominees, or like, I think I was just trying to read as many as I could so that I could get a good feel for what I actually wanted to vote for. But I, in theory, would love to read all of the books from one category. So we're just gonna have to see what has been nominated, what have I read, and what's realistic. So in hopes that this intro is not 1,000 years long, let's just go ahead, let me pull it up. Let's do it. So let's just start with the top 3 categories that I read from the most, which is fantasy, horror, and mystery thriller. If there's a Romantasy though, technically, anyway, let's not get complicated. Let's start there. We'll start with mystery thriller just because like that's the first one that's up here. Okay, maybe I haven't been as in tune to mystery thriller releases as I thought that I was this year because I recognize Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders. I believe that that's like a second book in the series, right? I think that there's a first one. And then I'm guessing that this is like the sequel to The Housemaid, which I've heard a lot of people talk about, but I haven't read yet. But Loreth Ann White, The Maid's Diary, haven't heard of. Don't Let Her Stay by Nicola Sanders, haven't heard of. Okay, and I haven't read any of these books. Okay, this makes a little bit more sense. I have some questions for you I haven't heard of, but I have definitely heard of None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I had a lot of my friends who aren't part of the booktube community who are just like really into reading were talking a lot about this because I think Lisa Jewell is just like a big mystery thriller author in general. I think I've only read one of her books. And it was like way at the start, like before I ever really got back into reading as an adult, I randomly read a book, I think during quarantine. S.A. Cosby, that makes sense. All the Sinners Bleed. What Lies in the Woods, I actually think I own a copy from Book of the Month, but I haven't read any of these books yet. Okay. I also haven't read any of these books. Alrighty. Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. I've seen this cover, haven't heard anything about it or read it. Bright Young Women, I have heard a lot about, but again, I have not read it. It's inspired by a real life story. Sorority targeted by America's first celebrity killer in his final murderous spree. Interesting. Kate Morton, Homecoming, I haven't heard of. And then The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, I have. I believe, sorry, my cat is using litter box. Was this the Book of the Month book? Or did I just see a lot about it? Don't know. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, it is not looking good for the mystery thriller section for me, personally, because I have, yet again, not read any of these books. Karen Slaughter, I have one of her books. Which one do I have? Pretty Girls. That has to be Oliver. He spends like an hour. All the Dangerous Things I didn't read because I read A Flicker in the Dark last year and it was one of my most disappointing / most hated books of the year. Was not a fan. The Last Devil to Die, that makes sense, by Richard Osman, because that's part of this series that everyone loves that I have not read yet. Yeah, A Thursday Murder Club. I want to read that, but I don't know if it's gonna be my vibe. I think it might be a little bit too mystery for me and not enough thriller. In The Coworker by Frida McFadden. Is that also the author of The Housemaid? Yes, okay. So they have 2 books on here this year. Have not read either one of them. But I did spoil myself a little bit and I just scrolled down and I have at least read one book from this list. At least one, and that is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And look, listen, I just don't think, I've said this before, it's a hot take, I don't think Riley is gonna get any better for me than A House Across the Lake. The House Across the Lake. It was perfect. Most people hated it. I had such a fun time. And now I don't know if anything is going to live up to that for me, but I do think objectively The Only One Left is like a very recommendable thriller. And I had a fun time with it. It just was not my favorite, and I felt like a little, at times it was just a little long. The pacing, a little off, Riley. Could have made that shorter. Anyway, I'm going out of order. Alice Feeney book, Good Bad Girl. Haven't read it. Heard of Alice Feeney though. The Leftover Woman. Nope. The River We Remember. Nope. 1958 Small Town, Minnesota. Does not sound like my vibe. Oh, and that's it. Okay, so I've read one. Let's hope that things are looking a little bit better for the next two categories, which I do think, even though I like mystery thriller books, I don't think I've read many this year. So that kind of makes sense now that I'm thinking about it. I've been a lot more into fantasy and horror this year because I was just reading so many 3-star mystery thriller books that I just got bored. I'm surprised that that book by Taylor Adams isn't on here. Did it not get good enough reviews? The Last Word. I would have expected that to be on here. Yeah, and it had, okay, interesting. I did read that. And again, I thought it was fine. It was like 3 stars. But I would have thought that it would be on the Goodreads Choice Awards. I've heard mixed things about What Lies in the Woods. How many was that? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20? Okay, 1 out of 20. Great start. Let's just go ahead and go down to, I want to see Romantasy, but first, let's check out fantasy, then horror, then Romantasy. So let's check out fantasy now. Okay. Oh no. Have I just not read many new releases this year? Maybe I'm just still in my era of backlogs. Maybe I'm still catching up on things because I haven't been that into reading for that long. Only the last, like, I guess 2 years. That's kind of a long time. Especially considering I read like over 150 books a year. But I feel like in a lot of ways I'm still kind of catching up because a lot of these, like, especially at least for fantasy, I recognize all of these. And they're like in theory on my TBR, but I haven't read the first book to a lot of them. So Natalie Haynes' Stoneblind, this is the one I'm least familiar with. Fresh take on the story of Medusa. Okay, so I want to be a Greek myth retelling girly, and I just don't know if I am, but I want to be. I could be. Martha Wells' Witch King. I own this book because I think I own a Fairy Loot or an Illumicrate or both copy, but I haven't read it yet. I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells, and I think that it was just too short for me to really get into it. It might be a series that I'll continue on with, but that's sci-fi anyway, I think. That's not fantasy. So is this Martha Wells' like first dabble into fantasy? Maybe she already has, I don't know. Hellbent, I still want to read Ninth House, and I do think I own Hellbent. I just haven't not gotten around to either one of those yet. It's fine. Same thing with Bookshops and Bone Dust. I want to read Legends and Lattes, and this is, I believe, like the prequel to that, possibly set in a bookshop, and I feel like I will love it. But at this point, since both are out, maybe I'll just do a reading vlog reading both of them, unless I end up reading all of the fantasy books, but that seems like a lot if I've already not read any. Okay, let's keep going. Oh my god, okay, hold up. Atalanta seems like another Greek or something myth retelling, but I haven't heard anything about this. The Last Tale of the Fire Bride I own, is on my TBR, and is like top, like I really do want to read this. Same thing, I didn't know that this was a 2023 release, Venko, by Cherie Demeline. I just read, what was that book? Oh my god, I loved it so much. The Marrow Thieves. Okay, I just read The Marrow Thieves and absolutely loved it. Cried, screaming, crying, throwing up. Absolutely amazing. So I got this ebook right after I read The Marrow Thieves on my Kindle, but then I just ran out of time and it got returned before I could read it. But I had no idea that this was a 2023 release. I almost read it. Listen, A Day of Fallen Night. I read The Priory of the Orange Tree this year and I hated it. It was so disappointing. Listen, okay, I wanted to love it. Not enough lesbians, not enough dragons. I don't get it. And it was so long and it did not need to be. And nothing happened, and not in a good way that I normally am here for. But I did say in that vlog that I thought the story, like the prequel story to A Priory of the Orange Tree is the story that Samantha Shannon actually wanted to write, and I believe that that's what A Day of Fallen Night is. I think it's the prequel. And in a lot of ways, that is, like, I would be interested to read that story, because I thought that a lot of The Priory of the Orange Tree was just like telling us about what had happened, and that sounded so much more interesting than actually what was happening in time, in the book. So I would consider reading this, but oh my god, those books are chunky. We're still 0 on fantasy. What is the point? Why did I scroll down so much? What is the point of this? Anyway, is this going to be absolutely pointless? We shall see. Clytemnestra? Clytemnestra? I'm so sorry, I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Seems like another Greek retelling. Clytemnestra. Most notorious villainess of the ancient world. Yeah, see? Just does not feel like my thing, but love that for you. Mark Lawrence, The Book That Wouldn't Burn. I've heard a lot about Mark Lawrence. Oh, and this is the start of a new trilogy? Okay, I was gonna say, is this gonna be like a 3rd or 4th in one of his books? But no, I do want to read Mark Lawrence. And I did not know that he came out with a new book in a new trilogy. So this is very interesting. Trapped his whole life in a vast library. That sounds good. Should we add this to my want to read? Yes, we should. We should also add, while we're here, oh, it already is, as it should be. Cassandra Clare, of course. Is this part of a series? Yes, but it is the first in a series. Okay. Have I read any of these books? No, but so far we're not having any books in the fantasy category where I would have to read lots of books in a series in order to complete all of these. I don't know if that makes it any more doable, but it is a step in the right direction. People love Cassandra Clare. I've never read any of her books, so I don't have a lot of thoughts. Although I have read a lot of, or I haven't read, but I've watched a lot of why can I not speak? Although I have watched a lot of YouTube videos on some shady things that she's done. But anyway, that's not why we're here. I've never heard of this. Victory City. Hidden in a clay pot sealed with wax, buried at the heart of a ruined palace amidst the ashes of one of India's greatest, nearly forgotten empires, a story waits to be told. I am recognizing Oron here, and I do have a piece of good news we'll get to. Hey, leave your siblings alone, please. I've heard a lot about this new V.E. Schwab book, which I believe is also the start of a new series. 2023 was the era of, thankfully, not having a bunch of sequels. Did they get rid of that? No, because A Day of Fallen Night is a sequel. I didn't know if maybe they changed it this year where sequels didn't count. Maybe they did. Or maybe it's just, just happens to be how it's working out. Because technically, you could read the prequel before reading the sequel, which would apply to both. Oh no, because Hellbent. Never mind. Hellbent is number 2. But I was going to say, technically both Bone Chops and Bone Dust and A Day of Fallen Night are prequels. But no, I just ruined that theory for myself. But I love V.E. Schwab. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and one other book from them. I would read another one. I don't know at all what this is about, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Oh, it's set in the world of A Darker Shade of Magic. So do you have to read A Darker Shade of Magic before reading this? Only time will tell. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments down below. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi is another book that I have rented or borrowed the audiobook from my library so many times because I own the ebook copy. And then before I can get to it, it ends up getting returned. But it is really high on my list of a book that I really want to read. Is it already? I was gonna say it should already be on my want to read. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I have such good news. I am literally listening to that right now. Like, listen, first thing I pull up on my phone, did you see that? Literally listening to it. Almost done. I only have an hour and 15 minutes left. So technically I will have read at least one book. Again, we're going strong with the one 2023 release in each category that I have read. And so far I am loving this. And it gives me a little bit of hope that I have read at least one thing from this category because I have not read The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young, but that name sounds so familiar. Fable! Yes, okay, that makes sense. That's the author of Fable, which I've heard good things about, but I feel like at this point in my life, it's technically on my TBR, but I don't know if I would like it anymore. I feel like it's a book I should have read at like the beginning of 2021 when I first got back into reading. Is this young adult? Or this would be adult, right? I think all of these are? Okay, I'd be interested in that. A woman risks everything to end her family's century-old curse, solve her mother's disappearance, and find love in a mesmerizing novel from Adrienne Young. Okay. Okay. No. Okay, listen. I own 3 of these, I think. At least 2, possibly 3. I've read none. The Will of the Many I vaguely feel like I have heard about. It has great reviews, but I don't know anything about it. A young fugitive uncovers layered mysteries and world-changing secrets in this new fantasy series. Okay, interesting. I don't know about that. Alex E. Harrow, I want to read books from. I own multiples. The Ones from Future Wishes is high up on my list, but I haven't yet. And I've heard things about the Starling House, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you anyone's opinions on it. I don't know if people are loving this or not. It is a gothic new tale. Okay. About a small town haunted by secrets that can't stay buried in a sinister house that sits at the crossroads of it all. Mildly intrigued. Okay. I do own Inkblood Sister Scribe, and I believe that that book is on Scrib too, and I own the Book of the Month version. And then I have picked up, and I want to read Tress of the Emerald Sea so badly, and I think that I will love it. Again, I just haven't taken the time to read it because I've ended up reading other things. But this would be like high on my list of books that I think I would absolutely love just because I fuck hard with Brandon Sanderson. And especially like a cozy fantasy featuring a like female main character in a standalone fantasy from him. Come on, that sounds like right up my alley. So again, out of the 20, I've read 1. Oh, how many do I own? I've read 1, I own 4, but I've heard of the majority of them. But I have to be honest here, in terms of reading all of them, the amount of Greek myth retellings makes me a little bit nervous. But what doesn't make me a little bit nervous is that at least there's only 1 book that I would technically have to read the first book of, but I also feel like I'd want to read Legends and Lattes before Bookshops and Bone Dust. So maybe technically 2 books. Okay. Horror, this is the real one that I'm holding on to. I feel like the horror category is going to be the one that I've read the most in. And when I say that, I mean, I've only read 1 in each category so far. So like literally if I've read 2, we're off to a better start. But this is the one that I have the most hope in terms of maybe I actually could read all of them before voting time, which we should know when voting is. It's fine, I'll figure that out. Let's look at horror. Okay. Starting off, I have read the first book. Chef's Kiss, at least we are tied for the rest of them. Monstrilio, loved this, 5 stars, absolutely incredible. Don't Fear the Reaper is the second in a duology, or it's the second in a trilogy, but I would have to read the first book by Stephen Graham Jones, which I do like Stephen Graham Jones, but I don't know if this would be for me, if we're being honest. What's this first book called? My Heart is a Chainsaw. Kayla loved it. I don't know if it would be for me because I'm not much of a slasher girly, but I have heard of all of these. Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I haven't heard one way or the other how people are feeling about this, but I have heard of it. And Mr. Magic, listen, I have a hot take. I loved Hyde by Kirsten White. I know most people hated it. I gave it 5 stars. I even went out and bought the physical version after listening to the audiobook because I loved the cover so much and I wanted to own a physical copy of it. I love Hyde. And I feel like more people are liking Mr. Magic and that I could really like this, and I almost picked it up. Again, I think I owned it or I borrowed it from the library, but then I just ended up returning it and reading something else. So my excitement made it sound like I'd read most of the books from this line. I haven't, but I at least have had intentions of, I have heard of them, and I have read 1. Okay. Sorry, Oliver. I've read, listen. First off, Rouge by Mona Wad, another 5 star. Maybe I am in my horror bag. This is my horror era, 2023 horror era, which I kind of already knew because most of these have already been a win. I loved Rouge by Mona Wad so much so that I also read Bunny this year, and that was like one of my favorite like standalone books of the year that I've read. And I kind of wonder if Rouge like beat it out a little bit, which I know is a very hot take for Bunny lovers. And listen, I love Bunny so much. They might be tied, but I fucking loved Rouge. Loved it so much. And I own Vampires of El Norte, and it's actually on my books I wanted to read in the fall, but clearly I have not gotten to yet. Okay, we're moving on because I have read Lone Women, and I really liked Lone Women. I don't think I gave it a 5 star. I think it was like a 4 for me, but it was a vibe. It was a time. I liked it. Would read from Victor Lavelle again, and that makes 3 books so far in the horror category that we have read. Her Little Flowers by Shannon Morgan is the first book I haven't heard of in this category. Francine has lived all of her 50 years in her family's ancestral home, a manor in England. No other living soul resides there, but Francine isn't alone. Okay, interesting. I don't like reading too much of a synopsis of a horror book. I don't know. I'm like mildly intrigued. Oh, okay. I haven't read any more of these, but 3 of them were on my list of things I wanted to read. The Reformatory by Tana Reeve Dew. I believe the audiobook is on Scribd and I do want to read it, but I know that it's like a bajillion pages long. But I've heard like nothing but incredible things about this book. Do I know what it's about? No. Oh, but it's a page-turning novel set in Jim Crow, Florida that follows Robert Stephen Jr. as he's sent to a segregated reform school that is a chamber of terrors. That sounds so good. Becoming the Boogeyman? Is this like a true story? It's a sequel? Oh no. The riveting, haunting sequel to Chasing the Boogeyman. Maybe that's where I heard the title from. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about this, but it has really good reviews. Exploring modern society's true crime obsession. I am not really interested typically in Stephen King books. I mean, we knew there was going to be a Stephen King novel on here, but Holly, for some reason, I actually am so interested in. Could I tell you what it's about? No, but I feel like I heard someone explain the plot of it and I was like, oh, Stephen, Mr. King, okay. You've got me intrigued. Apparently he's written this character before. Wouldn't know because I've only read one Stephen King and I DNF'd another one. But I actually was intrigued by that. And A House with Good Bones was tentatively on my list of fall books that I wanted to read, but instead I chose What Moves the Dead, which actually is here. Interesting. And I DNF'd it. It's more of like a tentative pause for now. I only read like 10 pages and I was like, this is not the vibe for me at this point in time, but I didn't see what those were. I saw that I scrolled too far and I scrolled back up, just so you know. But A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, I am interested in. I've heard mixed things. I actually don't know if I've heard of anyone who loved this. I think I heard a lot of people who were excited about the release, but then I don't know if I've heard a lot of people who were actually excited to read it. But it's short, so that's good. And I have heard of it. Oh no. It looks like we were doing better at the beginning. Silver Nitrate by Silvia Marina Garcia. I have books from her that I want to read, and I could not tell you what this is about, but I, again, feel like I've heard mixed reviews on this. I could not tell you who I remember reading this, but I feel like two people who I watched and I listened to were saying that they were a little disappointed that it wasn't quite what they were hoping that it would be. Is it also a big book? I can't remember. Dead 11, I feel like I watched a vlog where Kayla read this, right? And then she was like surprisingly really into it. Yes, okay, a creepy island where everyone has a strange obsession with the year 1994. A newcomer arrives hoping to learn the truth about her son's death, but finds herself pulled deeper into all of their stuff. That has an intriguing premise to me. The September House, I've heard mixed things on. Again, I feel like this was one of those that everyone was really excited about the release of it, and then people reading it, I feel like it was like, I don't know, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I feel like there were a lot of mixed reviews on that too, but isn't that always the case with horror? I feel like I'm just gonna keep repeating myself. People have mixed reviews about horror books. And then another Jennifer McMahon, I think that's how you pronounce it, Jennifer McMahon. I feel like she's always on these, but I've never read or picked up a book from her ever. My Darling Girl. Interesting. I think we have one more line. Let's see. Oh, I almost got excited. So close. Because I own How to Sell a Haunted House, but I did not read it yet. But I do own it, okay? And I have read a different, and see, a lot of these I just read a different book from this author this year. I read The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. But I haven't read How to Sell a Haunted House yet, but I believe it has to deal with like siblings selling their parents' house after they died from COVID, which is interesting. Our Share of Night, I believe, is a huge ass book that I've heard mixed reviews on, but it seems to have really, really high reviews for a horror book. Published 2019. So this must be like a significant re-release, because I think that they do, I think that sometimes counts. Maybe it was like self-published at first and now it's like traditionally published. And then I haven't heard of Sisters of the Lost Nation or Natural Beauty, but that cover's very interesting. Follows a young musician into an elite beauty-obsessed world where perfection comes at a staggering cost. Okay, so better. I was right that I have read more. I've read 3 and I own not that many more, 2 more than I've read, but I'm more intrigued by these and I've heard more about them. Okay, I still don't know if that's doable, but it's fine. Let's move on to look at, let me just scroll through here, like what the actual categories are, because I just jumped right into these 3. Fiction, historical fiction, mystery, thriller, romance, romantasy, sci-fi, young adult, fantasy and science fiction, young adult fiction, debut, nonfiction, memoir, history, and biography. Was that one? And humor. They took away the kids one, which I guess makes sense, because like most kids Okay, I think it makes sense in the sense that, like, obviously the kids in middle grade readers are probably not using Goodreads, but also a lot of adults and young adults read middle grade. I haven't read a lot of middle grade this year, so that probably wouldn't have been a category I could really read from anyway. I am actually kind of glad that they added Romantasy because let's be honest here, I don't see anything beating out Fourth Wing, but I was picturing Fourth Wing being in the fantasy category and I was like, okay, it's not gonna beat out. And it's hard to compare like fantasy, especially like high fantasy, to Romantasy stories. And not that one is like better than the other. I can vibe, trust me, I fuck with both, okay? But I think that it probably did a lot of things disservice having those two combined. So I'm actually kind of intrigued by the idea of splitting up those two and giving like the different books a chance by having romance, Romantasy, and fantasy. So should we just see what's in Romantasy real fast? Let's just go over it really quickly. I think I've at least read one book from that category because I have read Fourth Wing. So here we are. That's something, we all know that that's gonna win though, right? But we can at least just see what else is here. See how many I've at least heard of, because I'm not super involved in Romantasy. I wanna be that kind of girly, but I haven't quite found my niche with it yet. I thought Fourth Wing was fine. If you love it, I get it. If you hate it, I also get it. Am I currently in the middle of reading Iron Wing? Yes. But I don't know how I'm feeling about that either. I'm stuck, I'm in a slump. I haven't read it in like a week. Or when did I get a hold of it? Friday, and it's Wednesday, and I think I read 20% on Friday and I haven't read it again since. But I get it, okay? Don't come for me. I haven't heard of any of the other ones here. A Fall of Ruin and Wrath, The Hurricane Wars, A Fire in the Flesh, don't know those. The Jasad Heir, I have an Illumicrate copy of, and it's beautiful, and I thought the premise of this sounded really interesting, and I was wondering how people thought about, like, what people were thinking about this, because it sounded like something that I might be really interested in. I'm gonna click that on what to read. I didn't know it was a Romantasy. I didn't know Assistant to the Villain was a Romantasy. Also, I would have thought by this cover that it was like a quirky mystery thriller book, or like a cozy mystery with like a romance. Interesting. Coven, A Court of Cruel and Lovely. A Court This Cruel and Lovely. Haven't heard of that. Zodiac Academy, number, what, 3,842? 8. Haven't read any of those books yet, but I have watched Carrie Can Read's vlog on it, which was so entertaining. I think I've actually watched that a couple times. I haven't heard of any of these. The Hanging City, Bewitched, A Queen of Thieves and Chaos. Oh my god. Oh my god. I've read 2 from this category. Who is she? Is she in her Romantasy era? What? Okay, Sherry, you had to keep going. Okay. I read both The Ashes and the... Or, no, wait. Yes, okay, because I read both books in the series. I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which is the first one, and I just read The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is the second one, and honestly, I fucked hard with it. I thought it was fun. It was a good time. Give me my vampire smut. And this was like a slow burn, unexpected, not super smutty. Like, the first book dealt a lot with like a... What is it called? There's like a competition, like a magical competition. I was here for this. There were some times that I was like, okay, let's move on. Let's keep it going. And some cringy parts, but overall, I get it. And I had a fun time. So I have, in fact, read 2 from the Romantasy category. What a time to be alive. But these other ones I've never heard of. A Dawn of Onyx, A Soul of Ash and Blood. Is that part of the Blood and Ash series? That makes sense. Number 5? Okay, well, there's no way I'd be reading all of the books from this category, because we've got like 8 Zodiac Academy stories. And a lot of these are very long. And then last but not least, I think I've heard of The Foxglove King. I haven't read it though. Okay, let's look at young adult. I didn't know Divine Rivals was young adult. I would have put that in Romantasy. Okay, I have read Divine Rivals, so that is one from the young adult fantasy and science fiction category. Oh, and Monstrilio is in the debut category. And I have read that. And I started River Sing Me Home, but I ended up DNFing it, not because it was bad or anything, but just because it like was not, it wasn't the right time. I've heard of a lot of these. Adelaide, Inkblood Sister Scribe, that's one I own. Wayward I've heard of. The September House we talked about. That leaves definitively probably my only chance of reading every book from a category would be horror. Now, okay, when is voting for this? Does this have any information? Give me something, Goodreads. Opening round ends in 11 days. Okay, but what's the timeline here? Thank you. I have until December 3rd. What is that, like 18 days? Less than 3 weeks? Yeah. To read how many books? We'll see. Maybe I will just get super invested in that cause. But either way, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that we sat down and reacted this together. Let me know in the comments down below which one, like, what were your surprises? What were your guesses? Which category have you read the most from, or are you most interested in? Any that you would vote for? Any like all-time favorite of the years in here? Should I try to read 18 horror books in 18 days? We'll see, we'll see. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, put a little ghosty emoji for our horror category for the fact that I read 3 books. Shout out. Keep it moving, Oliver. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye! Just popping in to say, I think I worked it out, and I think I'm gonna read the horror category.